Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament recap. And so we're looking at another Gamebridge event. This is the same store, I believe, that I played the last event at, because the summer was a little quiet. Hopefully, going into the fall, we'll be able to get a few more of these types of videos rolling, because I'm hoping that the tournament scene in the local area will pick back up a little bit. Although I am going back to school, so we'll see if I even have time for that, if it does. But we'll see how that all plays out. But for now, we are going to talk about the Gamebridge event that took place at time of recording yesterday. When this video goes up, it'll have been 2 days ago, so it was on a Saturday, and this is going up on the Monday. So yeah, we're gonna get right into things. So it was a 9 player event, so relatively smaller side. And just looking at the list here, we'll see how everything rolled out. So first of all, congratulations to Reed, who you would know if you watch any of the battle reports on the channel, or if you've watched some of the more X-Men centered videos where, I think we've done a tournament recap with him before and things like that. But he is a member of this channel as well, and he managed to take first place. So congratulations to him. He was running around with X-Men, and I'll throw up his list, but I might try and grab him to actually do a tournament recap because he did so well. So I think that would be really good for people to watch. If they're interested in playing X-Men at a competitive level, and maybe get some tips or tricks from him there. So that would be something to watch out for maybe in the future. No guarantees. But yeah, so I unfortunately did not do so well. Not quite, 0 and 3, but I did went 1 and 2. And honestly, at first I was considering not actually doing a video on this tournament, but I figured the point of this was so I could analyze my mistakes and hopefully get better at the game by doing so. And I think this is, this is a prime situation to do that, where I actually didn't do as hot as I usually do. So because it was only 9 players, there was only 3 rounds, so I never had the chance to try and break even. Unfortunately, that is just how it goes. So we'll go through my list, and we'll break down some of the games. Unfortunately, I forgot once again to take pictures. I really got to get myself like I don't know, as my round counter or something like that, a little thing that'll remind me to take pictures between rounds. But unfortunately, I didn't, so I am going off of memory again, and hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, we'll start out by looking at the list. So this is very similar to the list I would have talked about in my list overview the other day. A couple slight changes, which I actually talked about in there as well, but basically the list is running both of the leaderships. So I've got Sam and Steve. I've got Beta Ray Bill up at the top. Dr. Voodoo is here now. He is replacing Thor in the list. I think that might be one of the only changes, actually. So Voodoo is in, Thor is out. I don't think Thor is necessarily bad for this list, but unfortunately, he's kind of filling the same role that Hulk and Beta Ray are filling. So I definitely don't need all 3 of them. So Voodoo is in because Voodoo is just a fantastic model. Next, of course, as I just mentioned, we have the Hulk. Hulk is kind of the centerpiece of this list, as I refer to it in that video. It's my Hulk delivery system. We have Iron Man because Iron Man's amazing. We have Iron Fist because extra use for Heroes for Hire, and I think he's really, really good under Sam. We've got Luke Cage, also just really, really good model. Heroes for Hire is fantastic, really bulky, well-rounded model in my opinion, and again, amazing under Sam. Spider Woman, because Objective Dropper, I think she's the only, well, I guess with Voodoo now, she's not the only Objective Dropper in the list, but she was also a long mover, pretty mobile. In general, really like the model. And then Wong, because condition removal on Hulk, a little bit of extra power here and there, and a little bit of healing, which can be really big on some of the bulkier models like Cage or Cap, keeping them in the fight for a little bit longer. So really like Wong there. Going into tactics cards, nothing too crazy here. I think, again, mostly the same as what I've brought in the past. Avengers Assemble, Brace for Impact, and Indomitable as my restricteds, because Brace and Indomitable are both really good for this list. I mean, Brace because Sam and Steve both hate having things thrown at them. Indomitable because I hate when you throw the Hulk. That's usually pretty bad. If it's a small throw, usually a Gamma Leap's enough to get back from it, depending, of course, on exact positioning and things. But a lot of the times, especially if you're throwing Hulk at me, I can almost use it as a brace. So it's just in general really good. Escort to Safety, I don't tend to play it very often, but it's there for when I have an open slot. Models like Wong sitting on a back point. Eyes on the Prize is really good with Beta Ray, and I guess technically Hulk could be using it as well, although I typically tend to have Hulk actually doing stuff in the turn one rather than just grabbing objectives and moving around. Um, Helios Laser is almost an auto include with Iron Man, in my opinion. It's just really, really powerful card. Being able to say screw that model in particular, or in the case of, a Hulk versus Hulk fight, gives me that little edge up on taking theirs off the table if I need to. Heroes for Hire, if you're running Luke Cage and Iron Fist, you're running this card. I mean, if you're just running Luke Cage, you're running this card. It's so good. No matter the cost, makes Iron Fist really, really scary, and in other cases can come up. I mean, if you really need, a throw or something that's only on a spender, whether that's from Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, Luke Cage. God, I'm realizing I have a lot of spender throws. It can be really, really good with any of those models. Recalibration Matrix is solid with models like Hulk, who are throwing a lot of dice, and sometimes all you really want is that one wild. So when you don't get it, it feels pretty bad, and sometimes that's worth full rerolling. And then Warpath, which is actually came up this tournament if I remember correctly. It can be really nice. It's almost like a second Indomitable. If they're trying to push or throw you based off of an attack, you can kind of come back from it with Warpath, which is really, really good. For Crises, I switched things up a tiny bit. I did drop Demons Downtown. Instead, I have Infinity Formula because I wanted to kind of force myself to play Sam a little bit more this tournament and not be quite so reliant on Hulk because in the past I've kind of brought Hulk every game, so I wanted to force myself to play things a little bit differently from how I normally would, at least for one or two games, and see how that goes for me. So I switched out to Infinity to make that happen. And then intrusions and gamma were always there, just kind of low secure count objectives, which are Hulk's favorite thing, but also something that, Beta Ray and even to some extent models like Voodoo can hold their own pretty well on. Research Station, Paranoia, and Fear Grips are my extracts. These ones haven't changed really at all in the last while. Research Station I really like because it's basically a secure, and Hulk loves secures. Paranoia is really good because I'm running a lot of kind of bodyguard style models, so I want to keep my things close to each other anyways. And Fear Grips, I just kind of like this one. It's just fun. Hulk being able to grab a hammer right out the gate is nice, and then I can Eyes on the Prize one of the side hammers with Beta Ray if I need to, so I have a few things I can actually do with it to justify it being here, but the real reason it's here is because it's fun. So yeah, that is the list. Nothing crazy there. It's things that I've brought before for the most part, so I don't want to spend too much more time talking about that. We're gonna get into the games instead. So the first two games were both actually Avengers mirrors, and then the third game was up against Hydra. And yeah, so let's talk about the first game here. So the first game I was paired with Patrick Miller here and I did end up winning. So we were playing on Paranoia and Superpowered Scoundrels at 16 threat, and I ended up winning 16 to 12. So relatively close game, not too crazy on the point difference there. I was running Sam and he was running Steve. So man, this was the first game, so this is always the hardest to remember. So I know I went with Sam, and I'm pretty sure I brought the exact same list here that I brought down here. So if I remember correctly, it was Sam, Iron Man, Iron Fist, Luke Cage. So that's a 12 threat worth of three threats, and then Bill to round things out. So I had five wide. Is that? Yeah, I think that's five wide. As for Patrick, does he have his list uploaded? Yes, he does. So I remember I brought the Sam list because it was a wider scenario, and I wanted to be able to compete with that. And specifically, I brought model like Bill because I wanted to be able to deal with his Hulk if he decided to drop it. Now, if I remember correctly, he didn't. So he brought, of course, Steve Rogers. He brought his own Luke Cage. He brought Lockjaw. So that's bringing us to 10 threat. Then I believe it was Black Widow and Captain Marvel. So actually, it was this minus Hulk. So it was an interesting list. Unfortunately, he kind of there was a bit of confusion. I don't know whether he misunderstood me or I misunderstood the question, but while we were deploying, he'd never played on Paranoia before, or at least hadn't for a while, or didn't play regularly. So he wasn't sure if you were allowed to hold multiple of the paranoias. And I don't know if it was either he phrased it differently and I didn't get it, or he just misunderstood my answer to it, or somewhere there was a communication barrier. But he asked me if you could hold multiple, and I said you couldn't, and I guess that got mistranslated to him thinking that you could. So his first turn, he was banking kind of on a bit of a lockjaw play to have lockjaw teleport himself up within range of two of the two center paranoias, and he was burning eyes on the prize for this. And then he was going to grab both of those paranoias and run away. And unfortunately, when he went to do it, I was kind of like, that's not actually how that works. You can't do that. So that was a little bit of a feels bad. I don't know exactly what happened to cause the confusion there, but is what it is. I felt a little bad about it, so I did let him take back the turn, but unfortunately, as he mentioned, he wouldn't have actually had eyes on the prize in his tactics cards if he had known about it being like that. So I felt a little bad, but we'd already deployed and a couple actions had already been made, so I didn't want to, I didn't want to go back and redo that. So. Um, we played it out, and yeah, so I think at the start I ended up having Sam and Widow were deployed against each other on the left side of the board, and there was a massive size 5 building in between that pretty much took the entire distance between the infinity formulas, but neither of them were on top of it. Meanwhile, of course, the paranoia was on top of the building right in between. So it was going to be whichever one of us decided to go up onto the building for it first was going to get that one. But then, of course, because we both only had one model over there, we would be leaving our Infinity Formula empty. Towards the middle, I had Luke Cage and what did I have with him? I had Beta Ray, and that might have been it. And then Iron Man and Iron Fist took the right side, if I remember correctly. That sounds all about right to me. So I had priority, obviously, so the first thing I did was have Sam go and take the one on top of the building. I figured because the building was going to be giving me cover, if Widow really wanted to shoot me with a pistol, she could, but I wasn't too concerned about that, so I was happy to have Sam be the one to go up there first, and nobody else was really going to threaten that side of the board, so I figured it was a nice early paranoia. Then, unfortunately, he makes the mistake with the lockjaw, but he still does end up having Lockjaw go. He still uses Eyes on the Prize. He grabs one of them and retreats to safety behind the building. So now he's also got Lockjaw kind of chilling on that point. That's been not claimed yet, but going to be claimed by Widow. So he gets Lockjaw hanging out over there and in a relatively safe position. Next, I went with it was either Luke Cage or Beta Ray. One of them went forward to go pick up the cube in the or not cube paranoia in the middle. I want to say it was Beta Ray because I think I reduced the damage down to 0. So Beta Ray was chilling in the middle of the board. He made a couple plays towards the middle, but because it's also a scoundrel there, I was also getting cover from any of his attacks. So I don't think any of them did anything too substantial. And then he because he didn't go for his one on the right side, which is where he had Captain Marvel deployed. I guess I never talked about his deployment. It was Captain Marvel on the right, and his Luke Cage, Captain America, and Lockjaw were in the middle. Um, so because he didn't go for the one on the right, and I already had two of the four, I figured, okay, well, you know what? I'll play a little risky. I'll go for the one on the right. I was debating between going with Iron Fist or Iron Man for it because obviously Iron Fist counts blanks if you're within 3 of him, but Iron Man has the damage reduction, so taking a damage on either of them doesn't feel amazing, but I knew if I put someone in position to prevent the 2 damage or prevent the damage from happening by being within range 2, then he could just go and grab the objective first, and I definitely didn't want that. So I think I opted to have Iron Fist go get it because Iron Man could actually make an attack against something turn 1 if things played out nicely. So that was what I did, and I had Iron Fist grab up the point, and I think Captain Marvel did take a shot at him, but I don't remember it doing anything too significant, maybe a damage or two at most. And then I had Iron Man come up, and he did actually get to shoot Carol, if I remember correctly, and I might have actually knocked her off the point. I don't remember exactly. My memory's a little foggy on that first round. No, thinking back, actually, Iron Man didn't get the wild there. If I remember correctly, it was actually a really bad attack. So nothing really came of that, but then we just kind of played for the center, but I had a couple more models that were able to impact that, so I'm pretty sure I also scored the center point there, and I had a pretty good points lead going into the next round where he only had one paranoia, and I was getting the bonus point. I mean, so was he because Widow was on his back point, but I had a bit of an advantage going into round two. Honestly, I don't remember exactly how the rounds played out on this one, but it was relatively straightforward. I don't think there was anything too crazy. There was a couple points there that some things happened that I didn't expect. Widow eventually came around the building to go try and deal with Sam because it was getting really close to the end of the game, and I still had a pretty decent point lead. So he wanted to start making some more desperate plays. So we had Widow come around the building and get super close to Sam to try and deny me my back point. And Sam at this point had taken a couple damage and he went to throw a shield to finish off Widow and got dazed by her counterattack, which was really rude. But otherwise, I don't think anything too crazy happened. Sam had a really good shield throw in round two, which knocked a couple models out of position, and Iron Fist managed to get the Iron Fist off on his Captain Marvel on the back end. But really, it was just a matter of um, trying to just hold the lead as much as possible. I didn't want to give him turns where he was going to score more than me, and I did pretty successfully. I was able to keep up with that. Beta Ray had a bit of a rough showing. He took a few punches pretty hard, but I think he also dealt out a couple all right, so it was pretty solid. But him and Cage were very good at just kind of holding down the middle for pretty much the entire game. Meanwhile, Iron Fist and Iron Man were able to kind of skirmish the middle and help push things away from those points and push back Captain Marvel a little bit while kind of doing their job and holding their points for as long as possible. Sam was super relevant, having the shield throw. Having to ignore line of sight meant I was able to throw kind of around the size 5 building, and he had a harder time getting over to me. So overall, things just kind of went, fairly well, but nothing crazy happened to really spike anything either way. It just kind of I took that early point lead, and I was able to pretty much just maintain it through the rest of the game. I think it ended round, four or something like that. So it wasn't anything too absurd. Towards the end, I was definitely starting to feel some pain on some of my models because he had taken Luke Cage, Beta, and Sam. He dazed all of them, and near the very end of the game, I think it was something like Luke Cage was running, grabbing points and trying to run away on like one health and getting chased down by, oh, I don't even remember who he had chasing me down. It might have been his Luke Cage, actually, now that I think about it. He like moved in Sweet Christmas me, but at that point it didn't matter because Iron Fist and Iron Man were now consistently scoring me 3 points per turn because I'd taken that side of the board pretty completely. So yeah, overall though, it was a really good game, really nice guy, and yeah, and I don't have too much to say about it. It was fairly straightforward. Going into game two, I got paired up against Dutch here. So he was also running Avengers, and I think he actually had both leaders in his list. So we were on Research Station Infinity Formula, and Research Station, I mean, the second I saw that get pulled, and it was from my objectives where that got pulled, I knew I was dropping a Hulk, but I also was in a bit of an awkward position here because he had said to me before the game started that his entire list was based around Hulkbuster. And while Hulkbuster generally isn't seen as a particularly good model, I actually kind of disagree with that. I just think it's usually not as good as the Hulk. Um, but I think it's a very scary model on a map like that. And unfortunately, when you're running the same number of models, because you're both running, a Steve Rogers centered around a six threat, you're kind of guaranteed to be running similar things. Um, Whoever has priority gets the last say on the researcher, which means me winning priority that game meant as long as he wasn't dazing my things before they get to activate, he was going to get the final say on all of the objectives. And that was very bad for me because Hulkbuster is very capable in the same way Hulk is of basically looking at the researcher and saying, "This is mine, everyone else get out of here." In some ways, Hulkbuster's even better at it than Hulk is, but that's an argument for another day. So it was definitely a downhill or an uphill battle for me to try and take that one because I'd started with priority, which was really rough. And I was saying to him the entire game, I really didn't want to have priority there. So my exact list at 17 threat, I decided I wanted to go all in on the models to deal with the big boys if he was bringing the Hulkbuster. So I brought Hulk, Beta Ray. I think it was it Iron Man or Luke Cage? I think it was actually Iron Man that I brought because I wanted to make sure I had Helios Laser, and then of course Steve Rogers. Over on his end, let's just take a look at his list real quick. But I already know 10 threat is the Hulkbuster and the Steve Rogers. So let's see what else he had in here. There was no Black Cat. Might have been a Luke Cage. That feels no. It was a Captain Marvel, um, and maybe a Luke Cage. Yeah, actually, now that I'm, oh no, it was a Sam Wilson. It was a Sam and a Captain Marvel. That's what it was. So we started out and we had Steve facing off Steve on the right side of the board. Down the middle, I put Beta Ray and Hulk. Down the middle, he put Captain Marvel and Hulkbuster. And then on the left side of the board, it was Sam Wilson and Iron Man. And a few things went very wrong for me this game. So turn one, I did very well, but I had to burn a lot of my tactics cards for it. So basically, what ended up happening was because I knew he was going to go last, and because I knew he was probably going to go last with specific specifically Hulkbuster, I needed to make sure whatever I had on that point was the only things on that point. I couldn't allow him to have any models on that point going into Hulkbuster's turn because if Captain Marvel had been on that point, then um, I would only at best be able to guarantee Beta Ray stays on the point because if Beta Ray gets damaged by the repulsor blast, he can just walk back on it. And B, I wanted to be able to keep both of my models on that point because if Hulk and Beta Ray, or if one of them gets knocked off the point, but Hulkbuster gets to stay on the point, then I don't score it, which means I only tie it, which isn't terrible for me because in the attrition game, I think Hulk beats out Hulkbuster, which is part of why Hulk is generally considered better than Hulkbuster. But it's not a game I wanted to leave up to the dice that much, so I wanted to take the early lead and try to hold it similar to what I did in the previous game. So I ended up having to burn three tactics cards to do this because I put Beta Ray up there before he put Captain Marvel up there, and then he had Captain Marvel throw Beta Ray off the point, so I had to burn, I think, Indomitable on that. And then when Hulk's turn came around, I threw Captain Marvel off the point. At this point, he actually hadn't gone with Sam yet, which I still had Iron Man, or I still had Iron Man as well. But I figured Sam wasn't actually going to impact that side of the board at all because if Sam pushes Beta Ray walks right back, doesn't actually matter. So there was no real harm in taking the middle point with Hulk and leaving Iron Man till later. So Hulk went up to the middle point. I punched Danvers. I gained one power, I think, which was exactly what I needed to be able to throw her. So I threw her off the point and just kind of away. And I had two models on, and I still had a lot of resources to deal with it. So then, of course, he brings up Hulkbuster, and he used Avengers Assemble, so he'd be able to double tap turn one with Hulkbuster, which probably a smart play. Um, and then he has Hulkbuster. He shoots Hulk, and Hulk gets pushed back by it. So I used, I think it was Warpath to come back from that. And then he goes to shoot Hulk again, not unexpected. But this time it's with a hit and run. So I had to burn Avengers Assemble when Iron Man's turn came around to be able to put Iron Man back on that or not Iron Man, Hulk back on that point. So unfortunately, I had to burn a couple of my or three of my tactics cards round one just to keep the point because Hulkbuster was really good for that sort of situation. Um, and maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have held out and waited for a later turn. and just accepted a tie on the first one. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I think scoring it first turn is so big because you can teleport it, but because he used hit and run to do it, he was standing on the back end of the point, so there wasn't really a place I could teleport it where he wasn't relevant for it. So I don't know. It's hard to say if that was the right call or not. But then of course I do have Iron Man go, and Iron Man might have fired a shot in towards the middle of the board, maybe at like Danvers or something like that. I don't think it was super relevant, but then Sam goes, and Sam unfortunately was able to shove Iron Man off of the back infinity formula, and this was unfortunately a recurring theme. So what ended up happening, we went into the next round and I was like, okay, well, I have to deal with Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster needs to go because um I mean he is a relatively easy model to kill when I have a Hulk and a Beta Ray that can beat down into him. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So I started with I think I started with Beta Ray on it, and I did like a God Hunter, a strike, and a throw or something like that. And I ended up doing actually a really good amount of damage to him. If I remember correctly, I got him relatively low. I think I ended up doing 6 or 7 damage with Beta Ray, which was really, really good. Beta Ray did fantastic. And then he ends up patching him up with Captain Marvel question mark. It might actually have been Steve Rogers who did it. But he does end up burning a patch up to try and keep him in the game a little bit longer, if I remember correctly. And then I have Hulk go, and I end up leaving him on something like 3 health. I'm gonna go with 3. So we end up tying that point that turn because I did a similar thing with Beta Ray and Hulk where I had both of them on the point and I made sure he didn't have anything on the point. So I was able to hold that point down at least tied, and I didn't lose too many points that round. But unfortunately, Sam once again managed to shove Iron Man off the point. The captains didn't do anything too crazy. I think my captain threw a shield at his Hulkbuster, which was part of where I put how I was able to get him down to 3. I think Cap actually got a really good shield into him. Um, so going into the next round, I have priority still, which has been the bane of my existence. But with the priority, I'm like, okay, I can deal with Hulkbuster before he activates. Have a huge swing turn. This game should be really, really good. So I was debating between Beta Ray or Hulk to deal with Hulkbuster because Hulkbuster only had 3 health left, and I was pretty confident either of them could do the job. Beta Ray had the power to do a God Hunter, so that wasn't going to be a problem. Meanwhile, Hulk is Hulk, and at this point, my Hulk had taken something like 8 or 9 damage because he'd laid into my Hulk a little bit to the turn before. So he was definitely going for the attrition game, and at this point, I needed to play that as well. So I ended up going with Beta Ray because I figured if Hulkbuster was off the table, my Hulk had really good chances. Oh, you know what? It was 13 damage on my Hulk, and that number is very specific because I remember it well. Um, so I figured with Hulkbuster on the table, Hulk was in danger of not getting to activate again. But if I could take Hulkbuster off the table, saving Hulk for a later turn would have been a really good idea. And Beta Ray has the power to do 2 God Hunters actually this turn. I think it was 2. No, it was 1 and a strike. It was 1 and a strike. Um, but if the strike built me anything, I'd also have a throw going around in there. So there was a lot of things that Beta Ray was capable of doing. So I go for the God Hunter. All I need is 3 damage. I'm throwing 9 dice into his 3, and he does reduce by 1, which is very relevant. And I completely whiff it. Unfortunately, I get no damage. Oh, and actually, worth mentioning the previous round when I got the God Hunter, I did get the trigger on Hulk as well, or Hulkbuster. So I threw him at Carol, and that's actually why Carol wasn't very relevant the round before, is because she got dazed by a Hulk being thrown at her face. So Beta Ray unfortunately completely whiffs his big attack into him, and then I go for the strike as well, and I completely whiff that as well. In a bit of a last ditch because he needs to literally fail to block all of it. I also decide to throw a car at him, and he ends up taking 1 damage from that. So things were not looking to actually. No, I don't. Oh, I built the. Maybe I built 1 damage off of the strike because I wouldn't have had the power to throw a card at him otherwise. Oh yeah, I would have because it's Steve leadership. So yeah, that's how that works. Um, so unfortunately, I don't get to do much to him there. Oh, and for what it's worth, the previous round, one of my Hulk's attacks into Hulkbuster went into Steve instead, and so Steve was waking up this round because Steve had taken a Hulk smash to the face and wasn't super happy about it. So then, because Beta Ray failed to get the kill, and Beta Ray, for what it's worth at this point, I don't actually know if he was even standing on the objective because I think he'd been controlled near the end of last round. Um, so his Hulkbuster obviously activates next because he's on 2 health and he knows I'm gunning for him. And he throws a Helios laser into my Hulk, which, yeah, that's fair. So he throws a 20 dice Helios laser, takes my Hulk off the table, which is not great news for me. I end up going up next with, I think, my cap. And, oh, for what it's worth, before he took my Hulk off the table, he repulsor blast my Captain America out of the way so that way I wouldn't be able to bodyguard it because at this point I had moved Captain America over towards the center of the board. I think that was actually how I managed to tie it the previous round. But so yeah, now he's taken my Hulk down, which is unfortunate. 20 dice, 7 damage. It's not unlikely, and yeah, he was able to do it. So I have Cap walk up and or he doesn't even have to walk up if I remember correctly. I just threw the shield twice because my Cap was also wounded at this point, I think, or I don't remember exactly where the damage was sitting, but I threw a shield at him a couple times. I think I plinked 1 or 2 more damage on him, but not enough. Well, if it was 2, it would have been enough, so I didn't do it. Um, and then the Iron Man and Sam situation remains the same. I do think. No, he had 1 turn where Captain Marvel went actually got to go binary, and I think she actually dazed Beta Ray that turn. I could be slightly wrong. I could be mixing things up a little bit, but that turn was a landslide in his favor. I ended up scoring 0 points, and he ended up scoring both of his back points and the researcher, which was not looking good for me at this point. So we go into the next round, and at this point, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, Beta Ray was off the table at the hands of um, Captain Marvel, so we're in a bit of a tough spot. So I end up going with Cap, and I do manage to finally daze. Hulkbuster took long enough, and unfortunately couldn't have been the round before. But Cap does manage to daze Hulkbuster. Unfortunately, it did take both of his actions, so he wasn't able to walk forward and get on the point at all. So he was still in a bit of an irrelevant position. I don't know what he ended up doing after that. I think he might have had Sam blink Iron Man next because Iron Man was the only thing he actually had in range. So finally, Iron Man was going to have a turn where he was actually going to score that Infinity Formula, which was going to feel really nice. So I moved Iron Man back up because he did get shoved, and I was just like, okay, you know what? Screw it. I have very little left I can do at this point, so I need to start dropping some more things off the table. So I dropped a Helios laser into the wounded or injured Captain Marvel, took her off the table before she activated, which felt really good. And then his cap, I think, just pretty much sat pretty at the back. So not too much going on there, but unfortunately he did still score up that turn because he had both of his back infinity formulas. Meanwhile, I only had one of mine since Steve was way out of position. But I finally managed to take Hulkbuster down, so I was hoping for a bit of a Hail Mary comeback on the next turn because everything he had was going to be wounded or Hulkbuster. There was a world technically where I could have taken everything down and won because at this point, I might be speeding things up a little. Oh no, yeah, no, I remember what happened the next round. So I had um in the next round, Iron Man dazed Sam. His Iron Man shoved back my Captain America because he popped out of the Hulkbuster suit during the power cleanup or whenever that happens. Um, Shoved my Captain America back and ran back towards his Captain America. Pretty much just sat on the point. I did get to plink a shield into his Iron Man, but it only did like 2 damage or something like that, so it wasn't enough to actually take him down. Um, And then we went into the next round, and my Iron Man did succeed in taking Falcon off the table. The final round of the game, actually, I think was the only round where his Iron Man or his Sam didn't push my Iron Man. He failed to do damage. So I take his Iron Man or his Sam off the table on the left side, and now my Captain America tries to chase down Hulkbuster and his Captain America. But unfortunately, we realized that because you can't ricochet off something that's KO'd, and because I had to do a move action to even get in range, it was impossible at this point. We were in the final round of the game, and he had significantly more points on the board than me. So unfortunately. I don't actually, I think after I moved, we realized I wasn't even in range for one shield throw, so it was like, well, none of this matters. Um, so unfortunately, he did win that one. I very much attribute that to Beta Ray throwing, but also perhaps it would have been better for me to have done that with Hulk. I think, only needing 3 damage, it felt like Hulk might have been overkill, but I should have went for it. It would have been the more secure one because Hulk could throw. Well, I mean, at that point, it would have been 10 dice attacks on just the builder. So I could have thrown 20, 21 dice at him if I really wanted to, with a couple throws in there as well. So probably would have been the better play. Unfortunately, I got a little greedy with Beta Ray, and it cost me a lot. So that game was a loss, which was really unfortunate. It hits me right in the pride, losing an Avengers mirror, but is what it is. So then we get into the final round, and we got paired against Nigel, and he was bringing Hydra, which is something I haven't actually played against very much. I've played them a couple times myself, but I don't think I've been playing them right. I've played some jank things like Corvus and Proxima splashed in Hydra and stuff like that. But we rolled up into Paranoia Infinity Formula. I ran the exact same list I ran in the previous round, and my logic behind it was he was very clearly running Sleeper Agent Hulk Hydra, and my list from the previous one, which I will refresh real quick, was Luke Cage, Iron Man, Iron Fist, Captain Sam, and Beta Ray Bill. So it had a few things that were really good at dealing with big boys. Stuff like Iron Fist and Beta Ray are both fantastic for kind of saying screw you to the battleship models. So I was like, okay, that seems like a good idea. What I neglected to realize was how effective Sleeper Agent Hulk A just is in general, and B is specifically into models like Beta Ray that rely on reactive tech to avoid taking damage from things. So unfortunately, so we deployed, and I had Beta Ray was going down the center. We were playing. Oh, what were we playing? It was Paranoia Infinity, right? So I had Beta Ray and probably Cage. Yeah, I think it was Cage going down the middle. I had Iron Fist over to the right side of the board. Yeah, because I wanted Iron Fist on an Infinity Formula, and I think he was with Iron Man. Yeah, Iron Fist and Iron Man were on the right side, and then Captain Sam I had on the left side, mostly by himself. Um, for no, sorry, Iron Fist was with Sam. Iron Fist was on the left, Iron Man was on the right. I wanted to have one on each side because that way I had Helios Laser on one side and Iron Fist on the other, so there wasn't really a great side for Hulk either way. Was kind of the logic there, and then of course Beta Ray in the middle, so he could pivot to whichever side Hulk was on as well. Um, so I had um, Sam and Iron Fist on the left facing off against Red Skull Master. And then he also brought, let's see here, he had his Hulk going down the middle. He had Bob and Zemo on the right side. And let me just do some quick math there. That is 16. So that was all. I'm not missing any models there. So, yeah, the first turn was already not going too fantastic for me, but it wasn't terrible. I was able to go even on the extracts. We both grabbed one paranoia, and I actually think, if I remember correctly, I might have screwed up and not gotten the bonus point. No, no, I did get it. I did get it turn one, or round one rather. But I had, I think, Iron, or no, it was Captain Sam went for. Oh no, yeah, it was Iron Fist went and got me the paranoia on. No, Iron Fist didn't do it. I didn't have anyone get it on the left. Red Skull got it on the left. Um, but on the right side, I had, was it Luke Cage that ended up picking it up? I think it was actually. I think I ended up moving Luke Cage over towards the right side to go get one of the paranoias there. I had Beta Ray grab one in the middle and pay to reduce the damage on it. Or no, I actually neglected to do that. Because I wanted to have the power to reduce when he punched me, which of course it's Hulk or Sleeper Agent Hulk, so I can't do that, and I wasn't thinking about it. And then I had Iron Man sitting on my back Infinity Formula. So um, I had Beta Ray go up to the middle. Nothing too eventful on the right side of the table, but on the middle, he did get a terrain throw into Beta Ray, which I realized, unfortunately, I wasn't able to reduce. It was only a size 2 piece, if I remember correctly, but it did end up doing 2 damage to Beta Ray through his 4 defense dice, which was a little unfortunate, but is what it is. And then on the left side, Sam plinked a shield over at the Grunts and Red Skull Master because they were both on the point. I think he might have done an Eyes on the Prize with Red Skull to grab the thing and still be on his Infinity Formula. But I plink a shield at the Grunts and Red Skull, and I managed to deal, I think, 2 damage to the Grunts and shove them back, which is actually kind of optimal for them because leaving them alive on 1 but out of position is pretty rude. But unfortunately, I didn't get any damage on Red Skull himself, so I didn't get to shove him, which was a bit of a shame, but is what it is. Nothing too major on that side. Going into the next round, let me think about this for a second. So, Hulk, I know, took out Beta Ray. He threw a size 4 at him and exactly killed him because I couldn't pay to reduce, which was really unfortunate. I think it was a size 4 and I only blocked 1 once again, so it would have been, or yeah, only blocked 1 once again, so it would have been 4 damage and he'd already taken 2. So Beta Ray perfect died to a terrain throw, and that allowed Hulk to steal, or he didn't even steal his paranoia, he just dropped it because Hulk already had one from the first turn. Um, and then he ended up coming over and hanging out with Iron Man on my back point, which was pretty annoying because, yeah, he didn't. I don't think he ended up throwing an attack into him because he didn't want to, um, what's it called, lose Sleeper Agent. But he walked over there and just kind of hung out. And then I had Cage go forward relatively aggressively. I started trying to move Cage towards Hulk in the middle of the table before he activated. I don't think I did anything super meaningful with him. For what it's worth, I think Beta Ray did get a turn. I think I punched Hulk like once and tried to throw him away, but I don't think it did anything super meaningful because he wasn't really planning on punching anyways because he didn't want to burn Sleeper Agent by failing to kill. So nothing crazy eventful anywhere else that I can think of. The left side of the board, I don't think this was the turn that I activated Red Skull, but maybe it was because Iron Fist would have been waking up with 5 power. Actually, yeah, no. So this time, this turn, I dropped the Iron Fist on Red Skull and I was able to. I didn't end up actually doing any damage with the Iron Fist, which was really disappointing, but I was able to kill his activation. So that side of the table, I think Sam was also able to push him back with a shield. So I ended up taking both of the Infinity Formulas on that side, which was really nice. I might be slightly misremembering that. He might have still gotten the or like tied the Infinity Formula, but either way, I denied him an activation over there, so I was at least able to kind of tie out that side. But on the right side, I don't think anything else really happened other than Beta Ray going down. Zemo, I think Zemo might have actually went down that turn. I know eventually he did. I went into him pretty hard with Luke Cage and Iron Man at one point, and it did manage to take him out. Bob also gets taken out relatively early this game. I don't remember exactly what the circumstances were on it, but I know he did end up being hit by something. It might actually have been when Beta Ray threw Hulk. I think I threw him at Bob or something like that. But or no, it was a stray repulsor blast from Iron Man because it also pushed him back to deployment line. That was what it was. So No, I'm misremembering that. It was something along the lines of Beta Ray because yeah, I the next round Bob woke up and threw a rocket at I think it was Beta Ray, and pretty much just took him out of the game. Did a couple damage to him, and then I think something else finished him off. I don't remember exactly what it was. I feel like I'm missing something on that side of the board. Maybe Hulk did another throw on Beta Ray before he came and hung out with Iron Man. Could be mixing things up a little bit on that side, but yeah, Bob does eventually get a rocket off, and I think it was into Beta Ray on his flip side. So does some chip damage to him over there because thankfully against Bob I can use my reactive tech. But then from there it was kind of downhill. I wasn't able to deal with Hulk on that side anymore. I didn't have the tools to do it. All of my characters that had power were going down before I was able to get a good turn off with Iron Man. The left side of the board, Red Skull woke up and took down Iron Fist and Sam in the same activation. So he was scoring up a bunch over there, and I was having a hard time dealing with that side. Iron Man and Luke Cage were struggling to deal with Hulk. Hulk did eventually lose Sleeper Agent. He punched Iron Man and left him alive on like one health or something like that. So it wasn't a total loss, but it was definitely going downhill. I kind of saw the way the game was heading relatively early on, and unfortunately, I don't know if it was I didn't bring the right list or I didn't kind of deploy against him properly, but I don't think I've quite figured out how to deal with Sleeper Agent Hulk with my list. I mean, part of it was that the scenario wasn't something that I think my list was well suited to deal with a another battleship on. My list deals with battleships really well on E maps, but it doesn't necessarily do the same on more spread out maps. I don't really have great answers to them on the spread out maps. I've noticed that in the past against well actually um, the player Dutch here in one of my previous videos. He was running High Hulk in Shield, and I had problems against that there too. So I think it's just something that either I as a player or maybe it's something in my list don't really have the tools to deal with. Um, I don't know. It's something I should probably explore a little bit and look into finding better answers for. But ultimately, in the Hydra game, I think I might have been better off bringing my own Hulk to deal with it, because at the end of the day, Hulk isn't going to be able to keep Sleeper Agent if he's against another Hulk, right? He's not going to be. God, I hope he's not one-shotting my Hulk. So that probably, had I actually thought about what Sleeper Agent does and what that means, it should have been my answer to it would have been my own Hulk, and he didn't really have many tools to deal with a Hulk in his list. I mean, he had very few in the way of character throws outside of his own Hulk. So if I'd brought, Hulk and Beta Ray or something, then there was no chance for his Hulk. Or honestly, maybe not even Beta Ray at that point. I think Sleeper Agent kind of does very rude things to Beta Ray and might not have been a good call in general. But yeah, overall, I think I made some mistakes at list building there, and they cost me a lot. But he was a good player. He knew what he was doing. So that was definitely, all's fair. I just unfortunately got stuck in a match that I wasn't super familiar with, and I haven't figured out how to answer yet because, well, I mean, this is only really the second time I've had to deal with something like that on a wider scenario. I'm very good at handling hulks on emaps and stuff, but a lot less so on Infinity Formula and other similarly shaped maps. So something I should probably be looking to get better at going forward, and maybe the answer is just bringing my own. We'll see. I'll hopefully be able to try and figure that out in the next tournament and see how that goes. Next one that I can think of is actually a Shatterpoint tournament. Next one I'm signed up for, so maybe I'll do a tournament recap on that. We'll see. I'm not as comfortable with competitive Shatterpoint as I am with MCP, so I don't know if I have the same kind of ability to talk about the game at a competitive level and not have just kind of garbage takes. So we'll see how that goes. I'll figure that out when the time comes. But yeah, overall, really great event, great group of people. I mean, there are a lot of people here that I've played against in previous events and things. So yeah, always good to see. Love going to the events here, and congratulations once again to Reed for managing to pull first place. He did a good job there. So hopefully we can pull him on and do kind of tournament recap for his X-Men on this one. I'll have to talk to him about it maybe sometime, I guess today when this video is going up. But we'll see if we can get something like that going. No guarantees on that. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I think I've talked about all I can really talk about on this event. Um, yeah, it was a good game. I made some mistakes. I unfortunately had a little bit of dice, but also I do think it would have been better for me to go with Hulk instead of Beta Ray in my second game there. Third game was, it was a learning experience for me. I'm glad that happened. Unfortunately, it happened in a tournament, so that part's unfortunate. But I'm glad I kind of been able to notice that flaw in my list design. So that was good. But yeah, otherwise, I think that is going to do it for this tournament recap. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you were able to get something out of this, whether it was, for your own Avengers games or playing into Avengers or anything like that, or just kind of learning more about local tournament scenes and how they work and what sort of games are being thrown down. Whatever it is, I hope you got what you needed out of this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like down below. Leave any comments, let me know what you guys think. If there's obvious flaws in my game plan you guys notice that you want to call out, please do let me know. If you have any potential solutions, what a good way to deal with those sorts of lists are in Avengers, I'm definitely open to suggestions. Because yeah, that's definitely a bit of a sore spot for my list right now that hopefully I'll be able to iron out. But yeah, that is about all I have for today. My voice is getting super raspy. I just helped record a bunch of dossier videos over on Aegis Brand Studios with Leland. So I'm losing my voice here and I'm gonna have to call the video here one way or another. So yeah, have a great day, everybody. Till next time, peace.